this is it for us right here. This is the Philly Truce pledge right here. So, my name is Mazzie Casher. I'm the co-creator of the Philly Truce app. Our mission says that Philly Truce app puts Philadelphians with information on potentially violent conflicts and direct contact 24/7 with trained mediators. So the app is a very simple tool that we hope to teach and encourage our community to use to be proactive and preventive and preemptive in curbing and ultimately eradicating the need for violent conflict resolution. So, I put this up here. Funny thing about this, I grew up not too far from here. I've lived in a few different places that, kind of border Temple University. I actually was a student here for a short period of time. And, when I was a younger guy, in my 20s, much of what you see right around Temple University did not look like this, even 10 years ago, much less, in the 90s when I was in my 20s or whatever. And the street that I grew up on is 19th Street, between York and Cumberland. It's like Diamond, Susquehanna, and York, so it's up a little bit if you're familiar with the area. And it's still pretty blighted, little square. I'm sure they're coming for it soon. I get calls all the time. Do I want to sell my lot? Do I want to do this? But this came to me when I was in my 20s. I shared it with a gentleman at the time. He was a community, he was, what do you call it, like a state rep or something like that. And he later became the sheriff of Philadelphia. Before that, he was a policeman and all this, career politician essentially. And he said, "Oh man, this is great. I'm going to, let's get together. I'm going to put this on some signs. We're going to plaster the neighborhood with it." And I said, well, what about this? And what about that? And, and he said, "Look, man, these people suffer from generational poverty, generational drug addiction, all manner of psychological and emotional abuse, incest, this, that, and the third. I'm not trying to do all that shit you're talking about. I'll hang the signs up for you, but that's about as far as I'm going to go." And so that conversation fizzled. At that time, it was all black or white. There was no gray area for me. And so I stopped messing with the guy. And this kind of sat around until last year. So how the Philly Truce app came to be is a friend of mine and myself who graduated down here. I think it's a soccer field or something now. It used to be a high school there, William Penn High School, if you know where Broad and Master is. It's now a lot on the southeast corner. Our high school was there. And so we graduated. We were roommates for a while, and then, we didn't see each other for many years here and there. But last October, when Philadelphia was counting up to close to 500 homicides, about late October, we ran into each other at an event. Another classmate of ours was opening a barbershop in North Philadelphia. Beautiful space, and we standing there looking at this guy that we grew up with, who was a total clown, did 5 years for armed robbery. We seen this guy completely turn his life around. Entrepreneur, married man, so on and so on. And we didn't notice at the time, Steve and I, and by the way, Steve is a firefighter for 18 years, very special kind of person it takes to be a firefighter. And so we started talking about the level of violence and what's going on, and, looking at our friend become a pillar of the community as soon as he cut this ribbon to open his barbershop. And I think the convergence of all those things kind of shaped us in that moment to want to take responsibility in some kind of way for what we could do about these children running around in the streets of Philadelphia killing one another. So we started talking, what do you want to do, what do you want to do, what do you want to do? And from that day, it was October 24th, 2020, we started talking every day by phone. And we pretty much just talked ourselves into creating the app. After probably 3-4 weeks of talking every day. First, the word truce came up. You know, we need to call it truce. You know, well, we're not in any gang war. How do we call it truce? Why do we call it truce? So then we realized, you know, what the everyday citizen here in Philadelphia really is fighting for is, you know, quality of life issues. And that really there's more of us who can manage their emotions enough to not shoot each other in the face than there is, you know, people who do that. So we had a basis on which we are in effect under attack for the quality of our lives, and we therefore have a reason or a premise to say that we are in the fight and we call it truce. So we ended up on that word, had a nice ring to it, and then we added Philly to personalize it and get people's hearts involved. And then lastly, we said, well, how are we going to disseminate this? Like, we know we grew up here. There was 500 homicides in 1990 when we were in 10th grade. This is nothing new, so to speak. Maybe the reasons were different, but for whatever reason, you know, there was 500 homicides that year. So we know it's a culture of violent conflict resolution here in Philadelphia. Philadelphians are proud to be tough. They're proud to not take any shit. They're proud to let you know, I'll fuck you up if I have to. You know, like when I was a kid, you know, the way people used to calm themselves down was, you know, I don't want to have to shoot this motherfucker, so let me get out of here. That was that was it. That was your coping mechanism. That's how you talk yourself down out of doing something irreversible. So anyway, so we knew we had a culture to combat. And we thought about how the rapid pace of technology evolving and how that has changed, like, you know, monumentally institutionalized businesses like the taxi industry, what Uber and Lyft did, or like the hotel industry, what Airbnb did. So we figured that if we had an app and we could get the right touch to the people we were trying to communicate to, we could begin to have a cultural shift here in Philadelphia that we could hopefully then package and take to other urban centers around America. Because, you know, it's not just here in Philadelphia. You know, people are killing each other all over the place, particularly in urban centers. So anyway, so we get through all our trials and errors. We're not tech people. We just have a couple bucks and we find some guys and we tell them what we want to do. And so, you know, immediately, you know, from about, I don't know, February, March of 2020, we start, of 2021, we start publicizing this thing and it just kind of catches fire, right? You know, all over the news from, you know, I mean, I don't know, from day one almost. And we realized because it offered a sense of hope, right? It was like a proactive, we doing this for ourselves. We're not waiting for the police. We're not, you know, waiting for downtown to come up with some solution or, you know, give us some grant money or whatever, although we later went through a lot of those processes. So, you know, we come out of the gate May 1st. By July 1st, we had like a solid, like a truce. Like we had 2 young kids who were flashing guns at each other on Instagram. You know, one of the parents got in touch with us. She said, hey, you know, sadly, this woman had lost a daughter, you know, years ago, a 5-year-old daughter, to a stray bullet. So she totally knew all too well the potentialities. We were able to get those 2 kids together, signed a truce, you know, publicized it, did all the things that we always attempt to do, because our goal is to, you know, make this type of behavior, this preventive community self accountability, trendy. That's another reason why we settled on the app and some of the ways we market this and interact with the community. So, you know, so things are going well. It's July. We got our first truce. You know, we get another like huge profile inquiry from a mother. You know, she says, well, we got, you know, she just says, I got some information about some of this beef in West Philly, which is really all we ask and need people to do. It's just that much. As long as we can get in touch with you and you're willing to talk, we can take it forward. So, you know, that was very early on, probably March of this year. We've been working with that woman ever since. So much so that the Philadelphia Department of Prisons, which is really the county jails for Philadelphia County, they have a huge complex in the Northeast, I don't know, 5 or 6 jails. We've been granted access to them to conduct interviews for people who may be parties to some of these mediations. And, you know, this just started from, you know, little breadcrumb. And how we ended up getting into the jails is, you know, the mother came, she said, look, she knew a lot, right? And this is another thing we know, that people know what's going on. This mother sat us down, showed everybody on Instagram who she knew was involved with it. You know, this one lives over here, this one is my son's friend, this one used to be my son's friend, this, you know, so she did everything we need people to do and the trust we need to have them instill in us, and it's the trust that they withhold from the police. So a big part of how we communicate to the people we target is, you know, if you go on our website, it's in big bold letters, we're not affiliated with the police. That's like prime importance, that they know that and that they see that over time. So anyway, so this thing we're working on now, you know, her son and 2 nephews shot some people, or the ops, and got arrested with the guns on them. They're facing 4 counts of attempted homicide, 20-year-old guys, 21, 22, 20. And because they were in an active case, the mother who was willing, the mother and the aunt of the shooters who contacted us was willing to go to parents on the other side. But because they had shot someone and it's an open case, you know, the mom didn't know who the victim was. You know, everybody who went to on the street couldn't identify anybody. So we hit a standstill. And this was great because it ultimately led to how we got into the jail. So I said to the mom, you know, can we write your son? Can we just write him and see, will he share what he can with you? So we write him a letter, and you know, for like 2-3 months we don't hear anything. So I say to Mom, what's up? Did you get the letter? You know, I don't know. Oftentimes they move prisoners from jail to jail. I don't know what for. Anyway, finally, you know, 3-4 months later maybe, we get a call. And it's a guy I never heard of before. He's like, hey, you wrote the letter, you know, he wrote the letter to the young boy and da da da. So I said, yeah, what's up? And he said, well, you know, he brought the letter to me and he didn't know what to do with it. So he had me read it and he asked me what I thought. Now this guy, you know, was like 48, right? So he's, you know, he's an old head, right? This kid was 20. So what I learned, and what we all learned right then and there, is that sometimes people have never been presented with the option that they don't have to go all the way to the grave or all the way to the penitentiary with whatever situations they find themselves in. Like, part of the reason it took him as long as he did to act on it was he had to process and digest the possibility of another way of handling it, right? And when you think about that, and then you look around the city, and not just with young people either, because sometimes we get 55 and 56-year-old women who are saying, you know, My neighbor and I fight over a parking spot every day for the past 15 years, right? So why all this is so important, because the culture of Philadelphia is, I'm gonna get you before you get me. I'm not backing down, so we really bringing people along a learning curve, and it's more emotional than intellectual, right? So I'll wrap this up in a moment. So anyway, so this is potentially our, when you talk about, you look at the news and these kids shot up these kids and then they shot. This situation we're working on now with these gentlemen who are in jail awaiting trial for 4 attempted homicides, for 4 counts of attempted homicide. Just think about that at 20 years old. And the light at the end of the tunnel in this is that nobody got killed, right? Because if someone had been killed, this mediation takes on a whole nother dynamic, a whole nother obstacle we got to overcome. So where we're at now is the one side, we interviewed him once. He let us know that, hey, actually, this guy from over there just got locked up too. Why don't you go talk to him? So we have one side kind of, we asked like them to make a unit of themselves, 6 guys from the same neighborhood. And we're waiting to kind of get the other side on board. And, we've been offered the opportunity to have a mediation right in jail, right? So this is huge. I don't know if it's unprecedented, but it's a huge opportunity because part of the rules of this engagement, these drills or whatever you want to call it, is nobody goes to court to testify. So even though they're facing 4 counts of attempted murder, they're pretty certain they're not going to prison for that, right? Because nobody's going to come to court. So that means we're going to go back out in the street and we're going to continue beefing, right? If we can successfully negotiate this truce while 2 of the ringleaders are locked up, it'll be groundbreaking, because now everybody can go home without having to look over their shoulders, right? And that'll be a beautiful thing. So that's kind of like our big project right now. Earlier today, well, I'll just recap this week, and then if there's any questions, I'll shut up. So earlier this week, or last week actually, we were asked to join a coalition that we did what's called Thanksgiving Memorial Truce. We were very close to 500 homicides. We were sure we were going to get it. And some people asked us, will we be involved in this? So essentially what we did, we had a few houses of worship in West Philadelphia come together. We recruited some men and some volunteers, and we patrolled and canvassed a certain perimeter in West Philadelphia from Thanksgiving night till Sunday night. And I'm waiting for I'm waiting. Numbers have been given to me from our source. I've seen numbers on the news. I have not had the time to really sit down and look. But it appears that weekend to weekend, 2021 compared to 2020, there was a 2/3 reduction in shooting and homicides, right? So in 2020, from Thursday to Sunday, it was 59 shootings and 10 homicides. And what we were looking at least when we went in the house on Sunday night, was 21 shootings and 4 homicides, right? In that same window. Now, we were only able to rally enough volunteers to, as I said, do a very, compared to the entire city, a very small area. But it spanned more than one police district, so it wasn't really that small. And in that area, West Philly, which has been very active this year, I think we only saw 4 shootings, possibly 1 homicide in that time frame. So although, there should be none, 0 and 0, we have to take the victories where we find them. And so we're very happy about that. And we're looking to expand that for the Christmas break from New Year's to, Christmas Eve to New Year's Eve. Hopefully outside of West Philadelphia as well. Lastly, today, you know, we had a beautiful day today. We had our first official youth engagement, right? We had a contest of sorts called Power Up Philly. We had 2 high schools. We presented with a case study, let them solve it, figure out what they would have done to avert some of the violence and bring a truce between these 2 neighborhoods. We had 2 high schools come out earlier today. It was beautiful. We had about 75 kids between the 2 schools. They had a lot of fun. We made them Philly Truce ambassadors, you know, and just empowered them and tried to inoculate them against some of the poor decision making. And, you know, we had to say, or I felt we had to say to them, you know, I'm sorry that I even have to ask you to take on such a huge responsibility in terms of keeping your community safe at 14 and 15 and 16 years old. But this is unfortunately the way it is right now. And since it is, let's give you these resources and let's have as much fun as we can while we do it. And we had a great event. And so, you know, the future of Philly Truce looks very bright. And we're just looking to keep expanding throughout Philadelphia, solidifying our model. You know, we've been through a few different iterations. And, you know, but it all comes back to this because, you know, I don't know who looks at this and says, no, duh, obviously. But the truth is, a lot of people have never thought about this, right? A lot of people talk in terms of when they gonna do something about this, when are they gonna, and our simple message is, look, this is a message of self-love. You know, there's nothing out here in the streets that can't be overcome with self-love, and it begins with responsibility. So that's kind of the Philly Truce story for the first 13 months. You know, a little bit about myself. You know, like I said, I grew up here in Philadelphia. Most of my career has been in entertainment, writing songs and plays and all kinds of stuff, storytelling. And so this is pretty much how I came to Philly Truce, and just with the mindset that we can help ourselves tell a different story about ourselves. So we're very intentional about how we message things to people. We're very intentional to get out and be places where other people might not, or the places that are stereotypically supposed to be, you know, no-go zones. But, you know, like we saw this weekend as we went out, when you spread love, you get love. And that's simply and totally what this is about. So, you know, thanks for your time. Thanks for having me. And I don't know if there's any questions or comments or whatever. I'd be happy to take them. And if not, yeah, sure.
I'm just kind of curious about